You know, what's one of the most critical, maybe the most critical skill in business? It's trying to see the future. Today, we're going to dive right into the high-stakes prediction game that companies are forced to play every single day. We're talking about forecasting. All right, let's talk about the billion-dollar guess. See, for you and me, guessing what's next, that's just a bit of fun. But for a business, oh, it's about survival. A single forecast can literally be the difference between dominating the market and, well, total disaster. We're talking about a billion-dollar guess, where the consequences are absolutely real. Okay, check out this tale of two predictions. This is a classic story of a massive, massive missed opportunity. On one side, you've got Sony. They were pioneers with their e-reader, right? But here's the thing, they totally underestimated how many people would want one. They just couldn't make them fast enough. And then, in comes Amazon. They launched the Kindle, and they've got units ready to ship right now. They didn't just sell a product, they swooped in and captured an entire market that Sony had perfectly set up but couldn't deliver on. Talk about a devastating miscalculation. But, you know, it's not just about underestimating. Getting it wrong in the other direction is just as dangerous. Take this software company, Data Impact. They did the exact opposite. They overestimated demand for a new product. They built the whole thing, they marketed it, but the sales, they just never showed up. And the result? They ran out of cash and had to lay people off. It really goes to show you, whether you aim too high or too low, the price of a bad forecast is always steep. So when you're faced with these massive company-ending risks, how do you even begin to navigate all that uncertainty? It's definitely not with a crystal ball. Nope, it's with a very specific business process. So let's get right to it. What exactly is forecasting? At its core, the definition is actually pretty simple. Forecasting is just the process of making predictions about the future by looking at past and present data. That's it. It's all about using what you already know to make a really, really educated guess about what's coming next. You're basically looking backward to find patterns that can help you look forward. And that right there is the key. You gotta understand, no one, and I mean no one, expects a forecast to be 100% perfect. The world is just way too unpredictable for that. The real goal here is to manage risk and knock down that uncertainty. It's about giving the folks who have to make the big decisions the best possible information to work with. It's not about being a psychic, it's about making a smarter bet. Okay, so when we talk about how forecasts are actually made, it really boils down to two major schools of thought. You can think of it as the art versus the science, or maybe the gut versus the spreadsheet. Let's break down these two very different paths to prediction. So, on one side, you've got the art, which we call qualitative forecasting. This is all about human judgment, intuition, and expert opinion. It's what you absolutely have to use when you're launching something brand new and there's just no past sales data to look at. Then on the other side, you have the science, or quantitative forecasting. This is pure numbers. It's all about taking that historical data and running it through fancy statistical models to project future patterns. It's perfect for established products that have a long, predictable track record. Now, look, both of these are absolutely crucial, but for this explainer, we're going to dive deep into the art of the forecast, because that's where things get really interesting. I mean, when there's no data, when you can't rely on the numbers, how in the world do you systematically capture expert opinion? Well, it turns out there are actually several really structured ways to listen to the experts. This isn't just about, getting a few smart people in a room and hoping for the best. It's about a real process for how you gather and refine all that expert knowledge. So a couple of popular methods really show how this works. First, you've got the top-down approach. This is exactly what it sounds like. You get the high-level executives, the C-suite, and they look at the big picture, market trends, the economy, all that stuff, and they make the call from the top. Then you've got the complete opposite, the bottom-up approach. Here you go to the sales team, the people who are actually on the ground talking to customers every single day. You ask them to make projections for their individual territories, and then you just add it all up to get the big forecast. But wait a second. Both of those methods have a potentially huge flaw. Whenever you get a group of people together, especially when there's a clear boss in the room, you run into the risk of groupthink. You know what I'm talking about? It's that tendency for everyone to just kind of nod along and agree with the loudest voice or the most senior person in the room. So the big question is, how do you get honest, truly independent opinions? Well, the solution is this really fascinating process called the Delphi Method. Here's how it works. You get a group of experts together, but, and this is the key, they never actually meet. An administrator sends out a questionnaire to get their input. Then comes the magic step.
All the responses are made completely anonymous. They're all combined and then sent back out to the group. So now, the experts get to see what everyone else thinks without having any idea who said what. This allows them to adjust their own forecasts based purely on the arguments, not on office politics or personalities. And this process just keeps repeating until the group reaches a consensus. It's an incredible way to harness collective intelligence without all that social pressure.
So we've looked at a few ways businesses try to predict the future. But maybe the single most important lesson in all of forecasting is this: the job is never, ever finished. Yeah, there's this great quote that says, a sales forecast is actually a composite of a number of estimates and has to be dynamic as those other estimates change. And that's exactly right. A forecast isn't some number you carve in stone. It's a living, breathing document. I mean, think about it. Forecasts are built on a bunch of assumptions, right? Assumptions about the economy, what your competitors are going to do, how much marketing will cost. And the second any of those things change, well, the forecast has to change right along with it. So really, the ultimate takeaway here is this: great forecasting isn't about finding a perfect crystal ball and being right all the time. It's about being deeply informed, making the absolute best guess you can with the information you have, and, this is the most important part, being ready to adapt, and adapt quickly when the future inevitably throws you a curveball. Which kind of leaves us with one last thought, doesn't it? Businesses spend billions of dollars trying to predict sales and market trends. But the tools they use, looking at past data, talking to experts, and being ready to adapt to new information, those are things we can all apply to our own lives. So it makes you wonder, how do you forecast your own future?